My wife confessed she still loved her ex and asked for a divorce because I wasn't like him, but when he rejected her, she wanted me to raise another man's child. Hi, my name is Ethan. I'm 34, and I was married to Olivia, 32, for 5 years. I met her 7 years ago at a barbecue through mutual friends. She was brilliant, funny, incredibly attractive, and the connection between us was instantaneous. It was as if we fit together perfectly from the very first moment. The first 2 years of dating were idyllic. We shared plans, traveled together, and had similar goals. When I proposed, she accepted without hesitation. Our wedding was everything we both wanted. A simple day, surrounded by family and friends celebrating what I believed was true love. The first years of our marriage were also good. We bought a house in the suburbs that, fortunately, is in my name. Our jobs were going well, and we started talking seriously about starting a family. We were so committed to the idea that we had even started choosing colors for the baby's room. We had our defined routines. I took care of the garden and the grill. She handled the interior design and meal organization. It worked until about 8 months ago, when everything began to change. Olivia started to become distant, but in a subtle way. I noticed she was always checking her phone. Not obviously, but significantly. Sometimes she received messages, and her face would light up. Then, upon seeing me enter, she would quickly lock the screen, or she would be on social media and close the apps as soon as I sat down next to her. When we talked, I could tell her mind was elsewhere. I would share things from work or plans for the weekend, and she would barely nod, her gaze lost. Intimacy also decreased. We went from having an active life in that sense to doing it very occasionally, and when it happened, it seemed like she was simply going through the motions. I tried to get closer, and she would claim to be tired, have a headache, or just not be in the mood. I asked her several times if something was wrong, if her job was stressing her out. She always gave me vague answers about projects and tensions at the office. At first, I believed her. Her job in advertising had always been demanding, but the distance between us only grew. I started to feel like I was sharing a house with a roommate who sometimes slept in the same bed. The worst part was the way she acted in public. She was still the same Olivia. Charming, friendly, the woman everyone adored. She would hold my hand, laugh at my jokes, play the part of the perfect wife, but upon returning home, she would revert to that absent state. What I didn't know was that Olivia was constantly getting advice from her best friend Chloe, a single woman who seemed to have a rather bitter view of marriage. Chloe thrived on drama and couldn't stand seeing others happy. She was planting ideas in Olivia's head about living her best life and not settling for a routine. Suddenly one day, Olivia suggested we go to couples therapy. She told me she had been reflecting on our relationship and felt we had lost our connection, and that she wanted to work on our communication and reconnect emotionally. I felt relieved. I thought, finally, she's acknowledging that something isn't right and wants to fix it. She found the therapist, Dr. Moreira, who specialized in couples counseling. Her office was in one of those buildings full of psychologists and therapists' suites. The place had that air of broken people are fixed here, which should have alerted me from the start. The first session was uncomfortable. Sitting on a beige sofa opposite a woman with a notepad who wanted to know why we needed help. But Dr. Moreira was professional, in her mid-50s, with a calm presence that didn't make us feel like a lost cause. She started with the basics: how long we had been together, what had attracted us to each other, when we first noticed the problems. Olivia was a bit nervous but participated, which I thought was positive. What I didn't know was that Olivia had been rehearsing these sessions with Chloe. Her friend had convinced her that therapy was the perfect place to be brutally honest without consequences. Chloe kept repeating that Olivia had the right to be authentic and shouldn't repress her emotions for anyone. In the second session, we focused on our communication patterns. The doctor had us do exercises to repeat what the other person said to see if we truly understood. We discovered how much we were missing in the everyday. Olivia realized that when she said she was fine, she really wasn't. And she learned that my silence wasn't anger, but a need to process. The third session was about balancing work life and marriage. We talked about job pressures, family expectations, and financial goals. Olivia opened up a bit about how overwhelming her job was, and I shared my fear that we were drifting apart. It seemed like we were making progress. At home, we talked more, shared quality time, and even intimacy began to recover some of what we had lost. Dr. Moreira heavily emphasized emotional honesty. She repeated phrases like, "Authenticity is the foundation of intimacy." I thought she was referring to being sincere about small daily annoyances. I never imagined that Olivia was loading the weapon she would later fire directly at the heart of our marriage. Behind every session, Olivia kept reporting back to Chloe. Her friend encouraged her to go further, to question if she was truly happy. She repeated phrases like, "You only have one life, and you shouldn't live it repressing your true self for anyone." In the fourth session, the doctor wanted to delve into our past relationships. It seemed reasonable. I talked about 2 girlfriends I had in college and how those failed relationships taught me what I was looking for in a stable partner. Olivia was next to speak. I could see Olivia take a deep breath, as if she were preparing for something she had been holding in for a long time. Then everything fell apart. She began talking to the therapist about Ryan, her college ex-boyfriend. They dated for 3 years and broke up when he moved across the country for a job opportunity. But the way she described him, God, she spoke of him as if he were a legend. "Ryan was my first real love," she said in a softer voice. "The relationship that taught me what a true connection is, what it means to be completely absorbed by someone." At that moment, I started to feel uncomfortable. We had talked about our exes on other occasions, but never like this. The way she described Ryan suggested he was a life-changing experience. And there I was, sitting across from her, feeling like a simple, irrelevant spectator. Dr. Moreira asked her how the end of that relationship had affected her. A common question in therapy, but what came next will haunt me forever. Olivia looked directly at me, not at her hands, not at the therapist, at me, and said, "I think about him every day." The room went completely silent. I thought she had misspoke, or that I had misheard, but no. She kept talking, and her voice became firmer. "I married Ethan because he is stable, kind, and I knew he would be a good father, but I never got over Ryan. I thought I could come to love him the way I loved Ryan, but it's not the same kind of love. I felt time stop, like that movie scene where everything goes silent and the camera focuses on a single face. That was me." "Are you saying you settled for me?" I asked. My voice sounded distant, as if coming from underwater. "I'm saying I love you, but not the way one is supposed to love, not the way you deserve to be loved. You are safe and reliable, and I thought that would be enough. But Ryan, he was passion. He was everything you are not. Game over. Marriage terminated. My life as I knew it had just collapsed." Dr. Moreira tried to intervene with typical therapist words about how honesty was the first step towards healing, but I wasn't listening to anything. My wife had just confessed that our entire marriage was a sham, that for 5 years, while I thought we were building a future together, she was thinking about another man every day, every anniversary, every trip, every time we talked about having children. She was comparing me to him, and I always came up short. Every time we were intimate, every time she said, "I love you," every time she smiled at me during dinner, she wished he was the one sitting across from her. I stood up and left without saying a word. Olivia called my name, but I didn't stop. I got in the car and drove aimlessly for 3 hours, trying to process what had just happened. When I finally returned home, I found her in the living room with a strange expression. She didn't look guilty or remorseful, but rather relieved, as if a great weight had been lifted. She tried to justify herself. She said the therapist had suggested she be completely honest, that revealing her true feelings was necessary for us to move forward, and that she felt liberated for showing her true self. "I love you, Ethan, but in a different way than I loved Ryan. Maybe now, with everything on the table, we can build something authentic," she told me. I replied that there was nothing to build. If she had thought about another man every day of our marriage, Then she had been emotionally unfaithful to me for 5 years. I deserved to be with someone who truly chose me, not someone who saw me as the safe option. That's when Olivia became defensive. Very defensive. "You're overreacting and being dramatic," she said. "Many people don't end up with their first love. That's called maturity, being realistic." "And what was I?" I asked. "Your backup plan? The guy with a good credit score?" "Don't be ridiculous," she retorted. "I chose you because you are stable, because you would be a good provider, a good father. That's more important than some teenage fantasy about passion." The tone of her voice was unbearable. She spoke of our marriage as if it were a financial decision and seemed to expect me to thank her for choosing me. That weekend, I called my brother, Daniel, and told him everything. Daniel is 3 years older than me and never holds back his thoughts. "Let me get this straight," he said. "She suggested going to therapy just so she could confess that you are her consolation prize?" "More or less," I replied. "And on top of that, she thought you would take it well. Brother, your wife is literally out of her mind." But that wasn't the worst part, because Olivia's master plan was just beginning. After her confession in therapy, I knew what I had to do. On Monday, while she was at work, I contacted a divorce lawyer. Since we live in a no-fault divorce state, it was enough to cite irreconcilable differences. We had no children, and the house was in my name. The lawyer said it would be a simple process. Meanwhile, Olivia continued to act as if her honesty was a revelation that would bring us closer. She spoke of a new beginning, of a more real love now that everything was transparent. While she talked about rebuilding, I was preparing the demolition papers. By Thursday, they were ready. I had them served to her at work, right during her weekly meeting. If she wanted drama, I was going to give it to her. I was at Daniel's house when she called me. I could hear her screaming from the other end of the phone. "What the hell is this, Ethan?" "Divorce papers," I replied calmly. "I think it's pretty clear." "You can't divorce me just like that. We're in therapy. We're working on this." "No, Olivia. You confessed that you thought about another man every day during our marriage. There's nothing to save." She burst into tears, saying I was being impulsive, that I should give the process a chance, that therapy was for facing difficult emotions, not for ending the relationship, that she had only been honest as the therapist advised. "You can't punish me for being sincere," she cried. "Telling you that I settled for you was an act of courage. You should be grateful." Daniel snatched the phone. "Hello, Olivia." Daniel speaking. "Just one question. Did you really think that telling your husband he was your second choice was going to end well? Don't interfere. This is between Ethan and me. It's not anymore. You just got served the papers, darling. And next time, don't use therapy as an excuse to confess that you don't truly love your husband." I took the phone back. Olivia was sobbing, saying she couldn't believe I was doing this without warning her. "And did you warn me that our entire marriage was a lie?" I said. She said everything should be fair, but actually the best part was just beginning. You see, the house was mine. I had bought it before the marriage and never included Olivia's name on the deed. So, along with the divorce papers, I also gave her a formal notice to vacate the property within 30 days. That night, when she returned, she was a total mess. Her makeup was smeared, her hair was a wreck. "You can't kick me out of my house!" she screamed through tears. "It's not your house, Olivia. Check the documents," I replied without getting upset. She began to rant, accusing me of being cruel, of ruining her life, of leaving her without a place to stay, and then I dropped the next bomb. "Oh, and by the way, Daniel is going to be staying here for the next month." My brother was dealing with his own situation. His lease was up, and he hadn't found an apartment yet. It was the perfect timing. "Are you joking?" Olivia blurted out. "You're bringing your brother? Why? To humiliate me?" "Nah," Daniel intervened, walking in with his suitcases. "I'm just here for the show. This beats any TV series." The expression on Olivia's face was priceless. She went from believing she was in absolute control to realizing that in less than a day, everything had slipped through her fingers. She tried to ask her parents for help, but they lived in Florida, and couldn't do much. She tried with some friends, but most were mutual acquaintances who didn't know what to think of the situation. The only one who remained firm was Chloe, her best friend, the same one who had encouraged her to unleash that therapeutic confession that triggered everything. Chloe kept repeating that I was being manipulative and that Olivia deserved better, which was quite ironic, considering that Olivia herself had confessed in therapy that she had been emotionally attached to another man for the 5 years of our marriage. The following weeks were a pressure cooker of tension. Olivia stomped around the house, slamming doors, having dramatic phone conversations with Chloe, where she painted me as the villain of the story. Daniel found the whole thing quite entertaining. "This is better than any reality show," he said one morning while Olivia was ranting in the kitchen. "It's just that the protagonist hasn't realized she's living in a tragic comedy. I don't understand how she keeps acting like I'm the problem," I told him. "Brother, she told you that you were a consolation prize, and then she got mad because you didn't want to put her on a pedestal. What more do you need?" he replied, without losing his smile. The most delusional thing happened about 2 weeks before Olivia's deadline to leave, that afternoon. I returned from work and found Chloe sitting on the sofa as if it were her own house. She was drinking one of my beers and had that superior expression, as if she were about to give me a life lesson. "We need to talk," she said, before I even put down my keys. "No, we don't need to talk," I replied. "And you should leave. Ethan, you're blowing this all out of proportion. Olivia made a mistake in therapy, and you're destroying her life over it." I looked around for Olivia, but she wasn't there. She had hidden upstairs, sending her friend as an emissary. "A mistake?" I said. "She confessed that throughout our entire marriage she was thinking about another man." "Everyone fantasizes about someone. That doesn't mean anything," Chloe blurted out. At that moment, Daniel appeared from the kitchen. When he saw Chloe, his face lit up. "This is going to be good," he said. "Let me guess. You're here to tell my brother that he should be grateful his wife settled for him." "I'm here to say that he's being vindictive," Chloe snapped. Olivia was just being sincere with her emotions, and instead of dealing with that like an adult, he decided to kick her out. "Work on it," I said. "What am I supposed to work on? How to accept that I'm a second choice in someone's life?" "Oh, poor thing," she replied with sarcasm. "Your ego was hurt. That's what marriages are like. Compromise, accepting that not everything is perfect." Daniel crossed his arms. "Ma'am, I have to ask, do you really believe what you're saying, or are you acting? Because convincing your friend to destroy her relationship and then coming here to say that he should be grateful is like selling fire insurance on a house that's already burned down." Chloe flushed with anger. "Olivia loves Ethan. Just because it's not a fairy tale doesn't mean it's not true." "You're right," I said. "It's not a fairy tale. It's not even a participation trophy. It's more like a tax deduction, something you keep because it's useful." "It's not fair," she retorted. "What's not fair," Daniel intervened, "is that your friend wasted 5 years of my brother's life while fantasizing about another guy. What's not fair is that she suggested going to therapy just to drop that bomb. And on top of that, you feel entitled to drink his beer and make him feel guilty for having some dignity." Chloe stood up, visibly annoyed. "Olivia is having a really hard time. She's losing her husband, her house, everything. Could you show a little compassion?" "Compassion?" I let out a laugh. "Where was hers while she was comparing me to her ex for 5 years?" "She didn't want to hurt you. She was just being sincere," Chloe insisted. "Chloe," I said calmly, heading toward the door, "get out of my house." "What?" She froze. "You heard me. Get out now." "You can't kick me out. I'm Olivia's friend. This is my house, and I can kick out anyone I want. You have 30 seconds before I call the police." Chloe looked up at Olivia, hoping for some intervention. But what could she do? She was already being evicted herself. "This is absurd!" Chloe yelled as she gathered her things. "Olivia, you don't have to put up with this mistreatment." "Mistreatment?" Daniel interjected. "You're in a newly divorced man's house, telling him to be grateful that his wife never loved him. The mistreatment is to our ears." Chloe stormed out furiously. But before closing the door, she yelled, "Olivia, call me. We'll find a solution." When the door slammed, Olivia confronted me with anger. "That was unnecessary. Chloe just wanted to help. You two are monsters," she said before running upstairs. Daniel turned to me, still laughing. "Brother, this was better than any college night out. Your ex-wife and her friend should have their own comedy show, only they don't know that the joke is on them." But Olivia still had one more surprise because apparently saying she never loved me wasn't enough. She still had a final grenade to throw. About 2 weeks after the papers were served, she changed again. She didn't look sad or dejected as before. She seemed excited. She was constantly glued to her phone, but now with a secrecy she hadn't had before. Calls outside the house, hidden messages in the bathroom, things like that. Daniel and I noticed immediately. "Your ex is plotting something," he said one night while we were grilling in the backyard. Olivia was talking on the phone inside with an energy that didn't fit her situation. "Ex-wife," I corrected him. "And yes, she's probably talking to Ryan, the college ex-boyfriend. The legendary one. The same one who ruined the standard for everyone else." "The very same," Daniel murmured. "Do you want me to find out what she's doing?" Daniel asked me with that curious and determined expression. Before working in construction, Daniel worked for a time as a private investigator. And even though he no longer does it, some habits are hard to break. "I'm not interested," I replied without giving it too much importance. "She has 2 weeks left here, and after that, she won't be my responsibility anymore." But Daniel doesn't know how to sit still when something sparks his curiosity, and when that happens, things usually get interesting. A few days later, Olivia announced that she would be visiting her college friend Grace for the weekend. However, her behavior didn't fit a simple visit between friends. She spent almost 2 hours getting ready, packed as if it were a romantic getaway, and left the house with an energy I hadn't seen in months. "Grace lives 3 hours away from here," Daniel said, observing from the window as Olivia loaded her things into the car. "I bet she's not going to see her." I knew he was right, but I tried to stay out of it. "I don't care," I repeated. "It's none of my business anymore." "Come on, man. Do you really want to know who that marvelous guy is who ruined your marriage?" The truth is, I was curious, but I was making an effort to move on. Daniel, on the other hand, didn't have that break, so he decided to follow her. He kept a good distance, using the old skills he once had as an investigator, and then he confirmed it. Olivia didn't drive 3 hours. She only drove 40 minutes to a hotel on the outskirts of Richmond. Ryan, the same man she had talked about in therapy, was waiting for her there. Daniel called me from his car. "You're not going to believe it. She's with him. They just went into the hotel together." "Are you serious?" "Completely. I have everything on video. They went in together. She looked happier than ever." They were there for about 3 hours. When he returned, Daniel showed me the recording. "This is dynamite," he said. "Your ex just had an affair with a married man, and we have it all on tape." At least now I knew that Olivia was capable of choosing Ryan over everything, even if it was just for a Tuesday afternoon rendezvous. It might not help in our divorce, but Ryan's wife would surely have something to say about it. That's when I understood what Daniel was implying. Ryan's wife probably had no idea what her husband was doing. Maybe at that moment, she was at home taking care of their daughter, believing everything was fine while he was at a hotel with his ex-girlfriend. "That woman deserves to know the truth," I said. "Totally agree," he replied. Finding Ryan's wife on social media wasn't difficult. They lived in a small town. He had a public profile on Facebook full of family photos. Her name was Victoria, and judging by what she shared, she seemed genuinely nice. Lots of posts with her daughter, family moments, the kind of life Olivia had tried to break. Daniel sent her a message explaining who we were and that we had important information about her husband. We attached the video along with an explanation of how Olivia had used our divorce process as an excuse to get close to Ryan again. Victoria's response came 2 hours later. "Thank you for telling me. I'm so sorry your wife put you through this. Ryan has been acting weird lately, and now it all makes sense." In less than a day, Ryan's life began to crumble. Victoria confronted him with the evidence, and he ended up confessing everything. She kicked him out of the house and contacted a divorce lawyer. Ryan, in a panic, called Olivia. I could hear her side of the conversation from downstairs. How does she know? How did she find out? There was a long silence. But you told me you wanted me. You told me you had been thinking about me. Another silence. Don't you dare blame me. You were the one who agreed to go to the hotel. I understood then that Ryan had been playing with Olivia the whole time. Maybe he was curious about his ex. He wanted to see if he still felt something, but as soon as he saw himself on the verge of losing his family, he backed off. Olivia came downstairs, a total wreck. Ryan says it's over. His wife filed for divorce and is keeping their daughter, she blurted out, as if she expected me to care. I'm happy for her, I replied. I really am. Ethan, everything is falling apart. None of this was supposed to happen. And what did you expect to happen? Olivia burst into tears again. I thought that if Ryan and I reconnected, it would prove that our thing was real. And then maybe I could be happy. By destroying 2 marriages? Daniel looked up from his laptop. Olivia, you can't cheat on your husband with a married man and act surprised when marriages break up. It's the most obvious outcome in the world. The consequences of the encounter with Ryan were immediate and devastating. Victoria went ahead with the divorce, obtained primary custody of their daughter, and moved across the country to be near her family. Olivia, meanwhile, was left with nothing. She had destroyed 2 relationships and was only left with divorce proceedings and an eviction order. She spent her last week in my house crying non-stop and talking to Chloe for hours on the phone about how unfair life was. One night she blamed me directly. All of this is your fault. If you hadn't overreacted in that therapy session, none of this would have happened. Of course, Daniel quipped from the kitchen. It's Ethan's fault that you slept with a married man. Logical. It wasn't cheating. We were already separated. You spent our entire marriage thinking about Ryan. It was only a matter of time before you made it physical. Finally, Olivia moved out as planned. She found a small apartment on the other side of the city, and I thought that was the end of our story. The divorce process went smoothly. The assets were being divided, and I finally felt like I could move on. But I was wrong. 3 months after the divorce became official, Olivia called me out of the blue, crying hysterically. She asked to see me because she needed to talk. I was about to say no, but something in her voice made me think it was serious. When she arrived at my house, she looked like a different person. She had lost weight. Her hair was messy, and she had that dull look that betrays a lack of sleep. She sat on the sofa and remained silent for several minutes until she finally spoke. I'm pregnant. At first, I didn't understand why she was telling me. We had been divorced for months and much longer since we had been together. Then I understood. She was talking about Ryan. Is it his? I asked. She nodded, tears streaming down her face. I called him 5 times before he answered, and when I told him about the baby, he said it was my problem. That he should never have seen me at that hotel, and that if I contacted him again, he would get a restraining order. So, not only had Ryan destroyed her romantic fantasy, but he also made it clear that he wanted nothing to do with her or the child. Why are you telling me this? I asked, still not fully understanding. Because I don't know what to do, she replied, visibly distressed. I can't raise a baby alone. I can't pay the rent with my salary. I've ruined everything, and I don't know how to fix it. Despite her defeated tone, there was still a certain victim attitude, as if in the midst of the chaos she had created, she still believed it was my responsibility to fix everything. Olivia, you were the one who made those decisions. You chose to get involved with a married man. You created this disaster. I am not the one who should fix it, I said. But we were married for 5 years, she said, almost pleading. That doesn't mean anything. Can't you at least help me find a way out? I told her that for me, our marriage was everything. That's precisely why I ended it when I understood that for her, it didn't mean the same thing. She had made it clear that I was never her priority, and now that her priority had left her alone, she was coming to me for support. She begged me to reconsider, assuring me that she had learned her lesson, that she finally understood how valuable our relationship had been. She said that Ryan, her lover, had only been a fantasy, and that what we had built was real. But that was the real problem. She was only able to value what she had after losing it, and then she made the most absurd proposal I have ever heard in my life. What if we try again? You always wanted to be a father. This could be your chance. We could raise the baby together, start over. I stared at her, unable to believe what she had just said. You're asking me to raise a child that isn't mine? The same baby you conceived while destroying another marriage? The baby is not at fault for anything, she said, and Ryan doesn't want anything to do with us. You could be the father she needs. You are completely out of your mind. That's when she exploded. She started screaming that I was selfish, insensitive, that I was abandoning her at the worst possible time, that if I really loved her, I would be willing to help her. I replied that the most loving thing I could do at that moment was to stop feeding her delusions. After she left, I called Daniel and told him what had happened. His response was direct. Brother, your ex-wife might be the most reality-detached person I've ever met, and I've met some truly unbalanced people. I changed my phone number and made it clear that any future communication would have to go through lawyers. I wasn't going to continue being her emotional support while she dealt with the consequences of her decisions. But for Olivia, that wasn't enough. Apparently, being pregnant and alone wasn't punishment enough for her actions. It has been over a year since all of this began, and I think it's time to tell you how it ended. 6 months ago, her daughter was born, a girl she named Grace. She was alone in the hospital, accompanied only by her mother, who came from Florida. Ryan refused to be involved at all, and many of Olivia's friends distanced themselves as soon as they learned about the affair and the pregnancy. Even Chloe, her toxic friend who encouraged her so much to follow her instincts, disappeared when reality hit hard. It's easy to encourage someone to live their truth when you don't have to face the consequences. Now Olivia lives in a small apartment, trying to balance her job with motherhood, incurring debts after selling her car to cover expenses. The court forced Ryan to pay child support, but after losing his job during the divorce, he had to accept a much lower-paying job. Between that, the support for his older daughter, and his own legal troubles, there is hardly anything left for Olivia. As for me, I am better than ever. I have been dating someone for 4 months now. Her name is Clara. She is a teacher, and I met her through a friend. She is honest, stable, affectionate, but above all, she makes me feel like I am her choice, not a backup option. A week ago, we were at a restaurant when I saw her, Olivia, sitting at the bar, disheveled with a glass of wine in her hand. As soon as she saw us, she started walking toward us. Ethan, she slurred, her voice a little thick. I stood up to prevent a scene. How are you? She looked at Clara. Then she looked back at me, her expression changing. Are you dating her, Ethan? She is Clara. Clara, this is my ex-wife, Olivia. Clara was polite but distant. Pleased to meet you. Olivia stared at her fixedly for several seconds, then looked back at me. We need to talk. Whatever you have to say it here. How could you move on so fast? I thought that seeing me like this, you would understand. That maybe you would reconsider things. I thought you still saw something in us. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. What did you expect? That I would come running to comfort you after everything you did? And that's when she broke. She started crying hard, uncontrollably. I have no one. I made mistakes, but I was just trying to be honest about my feelings. You are punishing me for being authentic. People were already looking at us. I leaned toward her and spoke softly. You need to leave. You are drunk, and you are causing a scene. I am the scene. You ruined our marriage because you couldn't handle what I said in therapy. You sent your brother to spy on me. You ruined Ryan's marriage. Olivia, leave. She looked at Clara again. Then she pierced me with her eyes. Is it because she's prettier than me? Is that it? Or are you settling for her too? She chose me, I said calmly. That is the difference. Security escorted her out of the place while she continued screaming that everyone had abandoned her and that life was unfair. Clara was incredibly understanding. That was your ex-wife. Unfortunately, yes. She seems intense. That's one way to put it. Now you understand why I filed for divorce. All of this had been a strategy from the beginning. The therapy, the confession. It was all planned to blow up the marriage and come out looking like the honest victim. But the plan failed. Ryan didn't want her, I left her, and she was left alone with a baby. I feel sorry for Grace, who will grow up with an impulsive mother and an absent father. But that is not my problem. I am focused on my future with someone who genuinely wants to be with me. To anyone going through something similar, I want to say this. Don't accept being anyone's plan B. Don't stay where you have to fight to deserve love or compete with memories. You deserve to be with someone who always chooses you first.